Mortal Kombat, a name so well recognized by the general public since the early 90s in the arcades up to today for home entertainment consoles. What is it that people recognize the game by? The answer to that is simple. Gore and blood. Lots and lots of blood. Having that and some interesting combat mechanics keeps the series strong and refreshing with updated character designs for returning combatants in every new entry, from 1992 with the first Mortal Kombat to Mortal Kombat 11 in 2019. Having played every mainline title, getting to see the evolution of gameplay in each sequel has been quite a ride, from digitized actors to fully fleshed out animated models, from stiff action to fluent combos. I'm going to take a look at all the games and see all the aspects that were added, removed, and changed as the series continues. But for right now, we will look at the first 4 games, as I feel it would be less daunting of a task to cover one particular style at a time. In the early 90s, Capcom was rocking arcades with Street Fighter II, the revolutionary fighting game that had a colorful selection of 8 characters from across the world and set the standards of the genre. The team of Ed Boon and John Tobias at the late company Midway wanted to create an IP that can compete against the World Warriors. But the higher-ups rejected the idea as they intended to do a movie license game featuring a digitized version of Jean-Claude Van Damme that was ultimately dropped as the actor was in talks with a different company of the same deal. Midway then gave permission to start the fighting game project, and history was made in 1992 in the arcades and 1993 for home consoles like the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. With the use of realistic-looking sprites, a simplified control scheme, and the use of graphical violence has made Mortal Kombat a video game phenomenon. This draws it far from other fighting games at the time, as many were trying to imitate Street Fighter II, and now Mortal Kombat was the one setting the trends with 7-character Gore Fest. The game allowed the use of 5 buttons: high and low punches, high and low kicks, and a block button. What's interesting about the amount of buttons is its layout, which is set up in a cross formation, with the block button being the center button for convenience of not needing to find it first. All characters have access to some universal commands. Pressing back and high kick will do a roundhouse. Doing the same with low kick instead gives you a sweep, and pressing any punch while crouching does a crunchy uppercut. There's also 3 up-close attacks. Pressing forward and low punch performs a throw for opponents who love that block button, and pressing forward with high punch or high kick will do a beefy but punishable single hit strike that can push an unprepared foe. These heavy strikes, exceptions are the sweep and throw, cause spurts of blood to appear on the screen. With proper utilization of each character's special moves, you are able to do a short juggle on your opponent to really tack on the damage. There are simple 2-hit combos at most, so don't expect anything too fancy. This was, in fact, the time when combos were accidental. At the end of every battle, the player is instructed to finish off the day's opponent and perform a fatality, a special combination of inputs that will gruesomely end the defeated foe in a unique way based on the chosen character. Now, I'm not sure how to include this, but after a certain amount of fights, you will be placed in a mini-game called Test Your Might, where you mash buttons to break an object in half, and helps you get a high score. That's it. All in all, the gameplay itself is sluggishly stiff nowadays. Movement was the biggest issue as it felt like moving on a grid, as if the characters were stopping at a specific line. And attacks, both standard and special moves, has a little bit of a delay to it. Aside from their archaic experience, the game just works. Everyone has a projectile, a special move that will allow the closure of any distance, and 1 fatality. Mortal Kombat is a fun little 2-player time killer, but nothing more and nothing less. That all changed when the second game arrived. With the explosion of shock and awe from the series' debut demanded a sequel. With the use of better equipment, increasing the blood factor, and improving the overall gameplay from the first, Mortal Kombat 2 entered the video game world in the arcades in 1993 and was ported to consoles in 1994. Want to know what came with it? The creation of the ESRB, the Entertainment Software Rating Board. And we all know how that works, so let's continue onward to those lovely M-rated games. Wow, the jump from 1 to 2 just hits you in the face with that lovely sound design and graphical lift. The roster jumped to a nice 12 characters without changing the lineup too much. A crouching punch was added for a quick little jab of damage by pressing down and low punch instead of having both crouch punches be relegated to uppercuts. The returning characters received additional special moves to keep up with the new members, making each fighter more versatile in tackling any matchup. The combos are still on the rough side, but the added moves make things a little easier to get at least 2 to 3 hits in, and seeing the damage go on the ridiculous side for certain characters like Reptile and Kitana definitely make it worthwhile. More challengers means more fatalities. Each character now has 2 ways of brutally ending your opponent, with the exception of Shang Tsung, as he is the only character with 3 outside of shapeshifting into the entire roster. Along with that comes the stage fatality that are available for 3 specific stages: the Pit 2, Deadpool, and Combat Tomb. The stage fatality was technically an MK1, but it was only for the pit and can be performed by doing an uppercut. But now with more stages being applied to this, the player will need specific inputs like a standard fatality. If you really want to humiliate your rival or just want to exert your dominance, you can perform a non-lethal finisher known as Friendship and Babality. These will require more work to conduct, as one will need to fulfill a universal requirement first before attempting humiliation. You cannot use any punches in the game-winning round. Only then will the act of kindness or morphing people into babies can take place. MK2 without a doubt was a more fleshed out idea of its predecessor. Its smooth and precise movement of your character with a reduced recovery of special moves to keep a simple combo game has made this sequel faster paced. Mortal Kombat 2 proved to be a game that defined the genre for the time. And then Mortal Kombat 3 happened. A couple years later, in 1995, the game that defined the series to many hardcore fans has arrived in arcades: Mortal Kombat 3. Well, not this version specifically. Yes, I said version. When fans first played the third installment, there was much to enjoy, with an immediate issue that slugs you as soon as the player hits start in any fighting game. The roster was only 15 characters, including 1 secret character. That's 3 more than the last game, with 7 of them being returning characters. It's kind of disheartening to see a redesigned Sub-Zero, Shang Tsung, and Sonya, who was a background character in 2, but no sight of Scorpion, Raiden, or Johnny Cage. New characters are cool and all, but when it comes at the cost of these mainstays, there's going to be an uproar. Later in '95, the second version came along, dubbed Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, and brought the roster to a lovely 23 characters, which has 4 secret characters, and this also includes returning characters that were missing in Vanilla, with the exception of Cage and Raiden, but definitely was a needed adjustment roster-wise. There is one more version for this entry. Mortal Kombat Trilogy was a console-exclusive enhancement of MK3 that gave players the ability to play as 37 characters. That includes the boss characters like Goro, Kintaro, Motaro, and Shao Kahn. God damn, try saying that 3 times fast. 4 classic characters, meaning Kano and Raiden gets their MK1 sprites, with Kung Lao and Jax getting their MK2 sprites, and a new hidden character, Chameleon, of male ninja mimic, or Chameleon, the female ninja mimic, depending on which version of the game you're playing. The PC, PlayStation, and Sega Saturn ports of Trilogy received the full roster along with Chameleon, while the Nintendo 64 version allows you to have Shao Kahn and Motaro via a cheat menu, does not have the classic characters, and has Chameleon instead. All 3 versions of MK3 were released on consoles in 1996. I can only imagine how overwhelming this felt. Okay, let's talk gameplay. Mortal Kombat 3 introduces running with a green stamina meter underneath a player's life bar. This will allow players to get in without using special moves to do that for them, and to execute the new combo system that was dubbed Dial Combo, or what it's known now as chain combos. All boss characters can't perform chain combos all run for balancing purposes. Trust me, you don't want to see that. Depending on the characters, players will have a minimum of 2 to a maximum of 8 chain combos at their disposal to rack in the damage, with some ending in an uppercut to transition into a juggle for extra damage. In UMK3, you can link into a chain combo by performing a jump punch or a jump kick. However, you need to jump in place when using the kicks for this to work. Friendships and Babalities are back, and now with a different stipulation from MK2. Instead of not using any punches, the player now must not block during the game-winning round for it to work. Aside from that, we now have Mortal Kombat's rendition of an Ultra combo taken straight from Killer Instinct called Brutality. And by that, I mean you have to manually input all the attacks so you can blow up your opponents. And that's not all. Mortal Kombat 3 also introduces animalities, where your character literally morphs into an animal to kill the opposition, and doing one of these is just plain whack. Get this. At the end of the third round of a match, you can't just input the animality. No, you will have to show mercy and activate mercy so the losing player can get a sliver of health back, beat them again, then perform your finisher, and may the Elder Gods help you if you somehow lose when doing this, because showing mercy means you didn't win and you look like a complete ass. Oddly enough, this isn't too far off from what we already have today. Mortal Kombat 3's gameplay holds up well, and is one that sits with current fighting games. It did have a bit of a rough start, but with the Ultimate and Trilogy versions, there is no reason outside of curiosity for someone to play the base game. The 16-bit era was coming to an end, and the rise of 3D technology was making a path for games to jump to the third dimension. Mortal Kombat was no exception, and by 1997, Mortal Kombat 4 was placed in arcades, and the console versions was ported a year later, in '98. The roster consists of 18 playable characters, 3 of which are hidden, and has a healthy balance of new and returning redesigned characters. One of which is Reptile, who was slowly becoming an actual lizard. There was also an updated version, Mortal Kombat Gold, that included 6 more characters from the previous game, one of which is hidden again, and 3 stages from the previous MK3. However, with the decline in arcades, MK Gold was released exclusively on the Sega Dreamcast in 1999. Okay, let me get this out of the way now. Although the game is 3D, it plays so much like its 2D counterparts to where it's just an upgrade in the aesthetics. Because of that, the game kind of feels a bit plain. Every stage is just a circle with not much going on, and the character models look straight up goofy, losing a certain charm that digitized actors had. MK4 feels like it was supposed to be just a 2D game, and it shows heavily in the gameplay. What was in the previous game, like running and the combo systems, are back, but the combos work differently and has limitations. Combos are essentially universal, where every character can do the same groundwork, with the only difference being the character in question and their special moves. An interesting change to the combat was being able to cancel into special moves, which helps vary the combos a tad. Let me make an example. Scorpion and Liu Kang can do the same 5-hit combo to start with. Scorpion can continue it by performing his spear and do the same exact thing, while Liu Kang can do a bicycle kick and follow up with the flying kick. Now comes that limitation I mentioned. MK4 introduces maximum damage, an automatic combo breaker that forces both players to full screen if either player performs a combo that exceeds a damage cap of 40%. This is supposed to avoid infinite combos. It's easy to have this happen with a few characters like Liu Kang and that combo item, but the rest are balanced enough that they won't reach the limit as easily, and sometimes can surpass the limit without triggering it for some odd reason. Since this is a 3D game, you are able to sidestep if you are getting cornered, and honestly, I never got much use out of this, since jumping over your opponent works just fine. Another addition is the use of characters' unique weapons, and again, I didn't use this much either. Actually drawing the weapon is a special move on its own, and getting knocked down makes you drop your weapon. By pressing down on the run button, you can chuck a rock, pike ball, or even a head to your opponent and deal damage that should be illegal. You can KO an opponent in just 4 hits by throwing things.
Scorpion wins. Flawless victory.
Alright, in all honesty, this isn't the worst game I've played in the series, but it's not one I go back to often. We do get to see the canceling mechanic come back much later in the series, and that's around when we got an overhaul in combos and how they work. It really is a good start in terms of improvements, but has a long way to go. Mortal Kombat 4 was the only game to be released during the 5th generation of consoles, and the last game to feature its fast 2D nature. Although it was in 3D, the gameplay focus was heavily based around the 2D aspects, seeing that it was a follow-up to MK3 just on feel alone. Out of the games that have been covered so far, I feel that Mortal Kombat 3 was a superior game of the classics for how crunchy everything felt. I will admit that Mortal Kombat 4's combo system, although simplified, had more of a free-flowing feel to it than its predecessor, and special canceling was implemented later in the HD games like the MK reboot. I will cover those games at a later time, not to worry. For those who want to experience these classics, I recommend getting the Mortal Kombat Arcade Collection on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, which contains the true arcade versions of all 3 games and has the Ultimate 3 instead of Vanilla 3. If you want a suggestion where to start for some pick up and play fun, try out Mortal Kombat 2. If you want straight up mayhem and faster gameplay, go for Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 or Trilogy if you can get your hands on it, since everyone is there from the get-go. The next time we meet in combat, it will be against the Deadly Alliance, and Armageddon will rise to end it all. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please click that thumbs up or give me a like, whatever you like to call it, and let me know in the comments what you think about the video. I am going to try to make more videos as time goes on. It is going to be a little bit hectic, but I will do my best to succeed. I hope to see you all next time.